Applying Fractions, Grade 4. Fractions name parts of wholes. We can see equal fractions, or equivalent fractions, on number lines. 1/2 is equivalent to 4/8. 3/4 is equivalent to 6/8. Number lines can also help you compare fractions. 1/4 is less than 4/8. 3/4 is greater than 2/8. In a comparison, think about the size of each fraction. Compare each one to another fraction you know well, such as 1/2. You know that 5/8 is more than 1/2. You know that 2/6 is less than 1/2. So, 5/8 must be greater than 2/6. Another way to compare fractions is to create an equivalent fraction for each one. The new fractions should have the same denominator, or a common denominator. An easy way to do this is to multiply the denominators. When you multiply the denominator of a fraction, you must also multiply the numerator by the same number to create an equivalent fraction. Multiply the numerator and denominator of the first fraction by the denominator of the second fraction. Then, multiply the numerator and denominator of the second fraction by the denominator of the first fraction. Once the fractions have a common denominator, compare the numerators. The fraction with the larger numerator is greater, since it describes more parts of the same whole. When you add fractions, you join parts of the same whole. 1/8 plus 1/8 equals 2/8. 2/8 plus 2/8 equals 4/8. 4/8 plus 3/8 equals 7/8. 7/8 plus 1/8 equals 8/8, or 1 whole. When you subtract fractions, you take away parts of the same whole. 8/8 minus 3/8 equals 5/8. 5/8 minus 4/8 equals 1/8. 1/8 minus 1/8 equals 0. To add fractions with the same denominator, find the sum of the numerators. The denominator stays the same. To subtract fractions with the same denominator, find the difference of the numerators. The denominator stays the same. A mixed number contains both a whole number and a fraction. This mixed number is 2 4/5. You can rewrite a mixed number as an improper fraction. A quick way to do this is to multiply the denominator by the whole number and then add the numerator. Write the answer over the denominator. 5 times 2 equals 10, plus 4 equals 14. To add and subtract mixed numbers, first, add or subtract the whole numbers, then add or subtract the fractions. Or, change the mixed numbers into improper fractions. Add or subtract the numerators. The denominator stays the same. You can change the sum back into a mixed number. Multiplication is the same as repeated addition. You can add these fractions to find the sum 3/4. Or, you can multiply 1/4 by the whole number 3. Let's look at multiplication another way. If we multiply the fraction 2/3 by the whole number 4, we get 2/3 repeated 4 times, or 8/3. This is the same as 1/3 multiplied by 8. You can solve the equations this way. 2 times 4 equals 8, and 3 times 1 equals 3. 1 times 8 equals 8, and 3 times 1 equals 3. Look at this word problem. There are 24 kids in all. So 24 is the number of parts in the whole. 10 of 24 did archery one day. So the first fraction to add is 10/24. 6 of 24, or 6/24, did archery the next day. This is the second number to add. Add to find the sum 16/24. This fraction can be simplified. 2/3 of the kids chose archery. Look at another word problem. The kayaking time of 3/4 of an hour is multiplied by 8 campers. To solve, multiply the numerators and the denominators. The product can be changed into a whole number. The campers kayaked for 6 hours altogether. Both fractions and decimals name parts of wholes. You can write 2/10 as a decimal or as a fraction. You can write 25 hundredths as a decimal or as a fraction. To add these fractions, you need a common denominator. Change 2/10 to 20 hundredths by multiplying the numerator and the denominator by 10, or add a 0 to both the numerator and the denominator. Then add the numerators. The denominator stays the same. To compare decimals, think about their size. Imagine where each decimal can be found on a number line. The decimal that is closest to the whole number 1 is greatest. Or compare digits from left to right. For these two decimals, the digit in the tenths place is the same. In the hundredths place, 8 is greater than 3, so the first decimal is greater.